Please like and comment on the video below. That will allow me to produce better quality videos and more of them in the future. If you're interested in learning to trade successfully on sports, then why not visit the BetAngel Academy, where we have more detailed videos. So I meant to do this video before, haven't had the chance, but I thought I'd better squeeze it in before the end of January. And that is just to do a quick appraisal of 2017 and look at how 2018 is going to pan out. And I think I may play 2018 a bit different this year. But last year, as I've stated in other videos, my focus was to be on all of those important events that occurred around the year. And at the end of the day, that's pretty much what you'd expect, because that is my job at the end of the day. I have to keep on declining invitations to these big meetings because my job is to be behind my desk here trading them. And as I've said before, it's a bit like being a Premiership footballer and then not bothering to turn up on a Saturday. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So that's one thing that was unchanged in 2017. That will remain unchanged in 2018. I will be behind my desk trying to do the best I can out of these big meetings. And part of that is because those are the only opportunities that I really get to trade very large amounts of money. And when you look at some of the, I've quoted a couple of times on the blog about some of the turnover that I've done at these big meetings. It really is, I love those big meetings. They're really a fantastic opportunity to go into the market and really go for it. Whereas, Newcastle on a Tuesday afternoon is not something to get wildly excited about. Now, the interesting thing is, over many years, I've discovered loads of little strategies that work pretty well. But strategies that work really well in high liquidity markets with large amounts of money are pretty difficult to come by. So I put a lot of effort in 2017 to be able to really make the best of those meetings, and that worked pretty well. I was pretty pleased with the way that went. So yeah, a big thumbs up for that. And of course, the early part of the year that we're in now, you sort of trough in February and then you build up to Cheltenham, and then it's Aintree, the Guineas, Royal Ascot, and off you go, and the Derby. So we're at that period where I'm beginning to start looking forward. We're only 8 weeks away from Cheltenham now, and I'm beginning to look forward to that particular period of time. But I did very well at Cheltenham last year. I managed to win on all of the races on BetDAC. Didn't quite manage that on Betfair, but it was still a pretty good result. And then really killed the Grand National. I actually did a blog post where I showed that I doubled the amount of money that I'd got from the Grand National, more than doubled, over the last 10 years. And then, that cycle continued onwards. So I did pretty well over the course of the year. I had a blinding Royal Ascot, and most of the big events seemed to work pretty well for me. But that's no surprise, because I put so much focus into them last year. I really put a lot of focus into them. And like I said before, the minor stuff, it's my intention to hand over responsibility to my children eventually. And I'm sort of less interested by that. But you shouldn't be less interested by it, because that's your bread and butter. Grades 1 to 3 races only make up about 25% of the card at best, and during certain times of the year it's much less. So my window of opportunities is a lot smaller because of the amount of money that I'm using. But that doesn't mean that you should do that. In fact, your focus should probably be on the day-to-day stuff, because there's still plenty of money there. And like I said, there's so many things that work well at a smaller level that just don't work when you're using larger money. So yeah, that worked really well last year. It's my intention to put a lot of focus into that next year, but there is more risk in that, because if you look at the biggest 3 weeks that I had last year, they accounted for 18% of my profit. That's how big they are. That's why I still trade them. That's why I won't go to them. That's how massive they are. So the problem is, if I flunk those, I'm gonna flunk the month, and I may cock up the year, basically. So there's a fair bit of risk in doing something like that. And you find the same with all major sporting events. If I perform well at those big sport events where the liquidity is high, then that's fantastic. But if I flunk them, then that's a big problem for me. So there is a bit of risk in pursuing that strategy. But yeah, pretty pleased with last year. By the time I'd reached December, I was already ahead of 2016, which amazed me. I didn't expect to do that well. Will I do as well next year? Well, probably not. But there are mitigating circumstances for that, because I fancy looking at 2018 with a different set of eyes. So I've been slogging away for years, and one of the things I always I feared it when I used to have a normal job, as it were, was having the same year in and out repeatedly for the rest of my life. I couldn't think of anything more dull and boring than repeating the same year every year for the rest of my life. I mean, what a waste of your life. I think you've got to mix things up a bit. So that's what I did in my normal career before I started doing this. Was I used to change jobs frequently, always like an upward progression. And I think I did one interview back in the early 90s, and successively from that point onwards I just was poached by other companies. And if you do a really good job and you put your heart and soul into something, then that is what tends to happen. But you don't have to leave, and in fact I could have gone for the security and repeating the same year endlessly for the rest of my life, but I decided that wasn't what I wanted to do. That just wasn't in my heart. So yeah, I used to change jobs frequently. So doing this for 17, going into 18 years now, is a remarkable length of time. But every morning I get up and I get excited about things that are coming up around the corner, and that's my motivation. That's what keeps me going consistently in this market. But the funny thing is, my motivation has changed over time. So originally it was like, right, I need to make some money to make this viable and to be able to continue this path. But as time has gone on, that's become much less important. So it's more pushing the boundaries of what you can do, you know, trying to hit those big turnover numbers or hit a profit target for the sense of achievement, not for the sake of the money side of things, but also solving unsolvable problems, you know, looking into all of the different aspects of the market and coming up with solutions for things that seem impossible to solve. That's my motivation on a day-to-day basis, is I'm looking at something and trying to figure out, how do I make that work? Can I understand it? Can I describe it? Is there some way of doing it better? So, you know, I find that that's my motivation now rather than the money side of things. And that will continue. But as we go into 2018, I reach a landmark year. And so yeah, I think that begins to shape what I do going forward. So incidentally, I mean, if you follow me on the forum or on the blog or on social media, last year, one of the things that I resurrected after a 7-year absence was greyhounds, because the automation in BetEng is so much better now, and we've got servants and all of these other things that we've introduced over the course of the year. That's allowed me to be able to trade more markets. So 2018, I will trade significantly more markets than I did in 2017, which was more than I did in 2016. And by doing what I do on greyhounds in 2017, it wouldn't have been possible without all of those enhancements. So you can sort of see where some of that motivation comes from. I looked at greyhounds again and just thought, I think I can solve this. And not only can I do that, but it is possible to trade it with streaming, with automation, and all of the other stuff that we've got. Suddenly that was back on the cards again. So just for the hell of it, I decided to crack that market, solve that problem, try and figure out how that worked. So I did that, and there was no particular reason to do that because there isn't enormous amounts of money in greyhounds, but I just thought, let's do it. Let's solve that problem, and let's work out what goes from there. So anyhow, yeah, 2018, I'm looking at it and I'm sort of thinking, well, maybe I need to go through a little period here of reinvention, and that is because it's a landmark year for me. When you reach a certain landmark in age, you suddenly start thinking about what you want to do. And if I look 10 years into the future, when I'll be approaching my 60s, you're sort of thinking, what can I do now that I can't do when I'm that age? So I love a bit of adventure, love going out trekking and mountain bike riding and all of those sort of things. But it's quite likely that at some point I'll have to give that up because I just won't be physically able to do that. Hopefully it won't be for some time yet, but I have to start thinking about, is that time going to be around the corner at some point soon? So with that in mind, I'm thinking of just having a look at 2018 and thinking, well, let's just do this year a bit different. You know, rather than pushing myself every day and, you know, getting that extra tenner out of Newcastle on a Tuesday evening for the hell of it, or to prove some point, why don't I just drop some of that and bring a bit more focus back into my personal life? So one of the things I'm considering, I don't know if I'll be able to do it or not, it all depends upon getting the right people in the right place at the right time, because I was thinking of going back to Omaha at some point, maybe this year, maybe next. It depends how everything lines up. Sometimes things just don't line up correctly. But I'm looking to make that return trip, maybe this year, maybe next. But of course that coincides with Guineas week, and you know, I've traded the Guineas for many years consecutively, and it's generally a pretty good meeting. But if I go to Omaha, I can't do it. But I'm starting to look and think not only about what I want to do and how I want to achieve stuff over the next 10 years, but also, you know, Charlie Munger and Buffett could die in the next few years, and I think, damn, I missed that opportunity to go one last time before that happened. So I'm sort of, you know, I hate to be a bit morbid, but I'm thinking along those lines. I'm thinking, what things do I want to do in the next 10 years or so that I may not be able to do? And what do I need to do to achieve that? So, you know, always fancied doing things like trekking, doing the Inca Trail and trekking to Machu Picchu, and climbing a few mountains. Maybe, you know, Everest is on the list, perhaps, you know. But if I'm going to attempt to do those totally crazy things, I've got to start thinking about how to do it. And also I need to give myself the time and space to be able to do that. So I need to have a rethink about how I'm going to organise stuff. So the office, we've been in this office now for quite some time. I'm struggling to remember how long, 8 years maybe. And I'm sort of thinking, well, maybe it's time to look at moving out of the office, because I pay rent here, and they keep trying to negotiate the rent up. But I'm thinking, well, probably time to move out of the office, because one of the things I love about trading is the freedom that it gives you. And I've sort of found myself locked into being in an office again, which wasn't my intention. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about 2018. I think it's probably going to be a half decent year. One of the issues that I've had is that the sports markets haven't been growing as much as I really wanted to. So, you know, I made more money last year from investing. I made one really cracking trade last year, stroke investment. It is an investment really, that's what it was intended to, but it was a great trade anyway. That yielded just under 50%, and it's the single biggest investment I've ever made, and it paid off spectacularly last year. If you want me to do a video on it, I can talk about it, although it's not sports related. It's obviously stock market related, but let me know if you're interested in me telling you what that was and why I did it, and I can happily produce a video on that for you. But because of the growth of investing and stuff, that's taking up more of my time as well. So I've got to start thinking a bit more carefully about, you know, some of these outrageous daft things that I want to do. How am I going to achieve those? I'm going to have to let a few things slip if I'm going to achieve those. And at the end of the day, why shouldn't I do that? You know, it makes perfect sense to do that. I always swore when I was younger, if I had the opportunity to do those things, I would do. But because I've sort of been embroiled in the role for so long, and it's sort of creeping incrementally over many years, I've sort of forgotten that that's what I said, and I really should go out and do those things. The investing side of it, because it's getting bigger, I really need to pay more attention on that, because that gets a little bit more serious when you get to larger numbers. But obviously, you know, I still love trading, still love all the sports stuff, and I can still make money at it. So why would I not do it? Maybe I just change the shape of what I do, and like I said before, hand over a bit of responsibility. Love to see the markets grow a bit more. I don't think they've grown anywhere near enough that they should do. So you know, I'm going to have a look at that again this year, but again, that's going to take a bit of time to take out to see how do we get that up to that level, and is it, you know, new exchanges that will bring that growth, or is it influencing the existing ones that will help achieve that? But I would love to see the markets grow much more. If they were growing 20–30% a year, then there'd probably be no need for me to put in the excess cash elsewhere. That wouldn't necessarily be an issue. But the fact that they're not growing means that the surplus cash it's throwing off, I can't reinvest in the market. Got to spend time doing something elsewhere. But one of the things that I'm thinking of doing this year as well is putting more online content out there for you. Because I struggle with the number of people that send me queries. I really struggle to get back to everybody. And people who contact me will know this, that it may take me a bit of time to get back to you, but I will get back to you eventually. But I'm thinking of doing more online content, but that would be probably outside of YouTube, so it can be more structured and a bit more deliberate, but also so that I can probably fund somebody to help me produce that content. But anyway, that's a little reflection on 2017. Looking forward into 2018, I don't think that my results, if I did exactly the same markets in 2018, would be that much different from 2017. In fact, I think I'll probably do slightly better, because I tend to gain more knowledge, skill and ability as time progresses, and there are more markets now than there used to be, and I'm finding more ways of participating in them. So from your perspective, I think the market's pretty stable. The opportunity in 2017, the fact I managed to grow in 2017 tells you there's still plenty of opportunity there, and I think that will be replicated again in 2018. But even better in 2018 is we reach the peak of the sports cycle. What do I mean by that? Well, we have the World Cup. So there's a multi-year peak where liquidity is very, very high, And in 2018, that's exactly what we see. So I think overall, for everybody, it should be a decent 2018.